Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We are super excited to be hosting this webinar panel discussion conversation. And before we go ahead and kick it off, I think it would be best if everyone went around and introduced themselves. So I'll go ahead and start. My name is Sheer. I am a partner manager here at Syte, and looking forward to discussing the visual commerce with you all.
Maybe I'll take it from there. Hi, Sheer. Yeah, my name is Jacob. I'm the COO at Pixelz, where we help brands, retailers such as Greg get their images online in a great fashion. I'm based in Copenhagen and sunny Copenhagen right now, as you can probably see from this from the window, the light coming in here. Yeah, I'm excited to kick this off and learn from you guys.
Well, I'm based in Tel Aviv, and it's usually sunny, but sunset's happening right now, so sun's going away.
Well, as you mentioned me, maybe I should jump in. My name is Greg McQueen, and yeah, I'm the lead product photographer here at Skatepro. And we're actually based sort of in a little town called Syte, which is just outside of Aarhus, which is sort of the second biggest city in Denmark next to Copenhagen. So we're sort of on opposite ends of the country, right, Jacob? So, but in the same country. So.
Right.
And I'm Tovi Heilbronn. I'm Director of Digital Experience and Product for Rosen. Rosen is a Canadian luxury menswear retailer, and I am actually in Toronto, Canada. And what I do is I kind of sit at the intersection of digital technology and business within the company. So essentially taking executive defined strategic priorities and road mapping them and enabling capacity within the company to execute on that vision.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I know a few more people came in while we were introducing ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off. This is going to be a conversation between the four of us. So again, if anyone has any questions at all throughout the discussion, feel free to just type them away, and we'll be more than happy to answer them during the discussion. So we're going to go ahead and start. So again, just in time for the holiday shopping, we are really excited to talk about the spike in online shopping that has raised the bar for customer expectations, especially when it comes to visual experiences and website design. We'll be looking at the technologies that are helping brands, especially brands like Skatepro and Rosen, essentially keep these experiences to the level that the customers are demanding nowadays, and again has hands-on tips to make visuals on your site relevant, compelling, and helpful for all types of customers. So we're going to go ahead and we'll start. So again, a recent report from IBM has estimated that the pandemic has accelerated the shift to digital shopping by 5 years. So with more and more people shopping online than ever before, I think it would be really interesting to dive into how that's changed customer expectations and their needs for visual experiences on e-commerce sites. So I'd love to ask you guys, the experts, how has COVID and new customer expectations impacted e-commerce website design and evolution?
Do you want to start, Toby?
Sure. So from Rosen's perspective, from my own perspective, something that's really changed is we need to better project the brand point of view. That is actually a very important part of the recipe of what makes Rosen different. It's not just a place to buy a thing. It's more what we know about it and how that actually complements who you are and how you try to project yourself to the world. Rosen's brand ethos is very much all about if you look good and if you feel good, you're going to bring your best self to the world and essentially raising your own confidence. And clothing is a part of what makes that happen. What we're trying to do is curate our product selection, really because our stores were shuttered online for a very long time. The in-store experiences, the physical stores were shuttered during COVID. It was really quite something else here within Canada. And our ways of trying to project that brand point of view is through two particular things. One, we're testing out a new product detail page. So it's a completely new page template tested against our, call it classic PDP. So we can experiment to see how that gives an uplift for conversion, if at all. And the second tactic that I'd like to highlight on projecting the brand's point of view is what we call shop the look. So this is essentially leveraging the beautiful creative assets that our in-house photography team takes, where you have someone, a model looking like showing off a certain look, like a head-to-toe look, and we can actually take that photo and then have a button on it, superimpose on top of it, where a client will have a pop-up, and within this pop-up will show the exact item seen in that look. And we actually try to take that a step further by leveraging Syte, who Sheer is here representing, where if the client perhaps sees from the creative asset, they see the exact thing shown, but they don't want the exact thing, we actually have Syte as almost the next step in that customer journey to say, okay, show me something similar to that thing. So it's not just, essentially it keeps on-page engagement higher and the purchase funnel longer. Another aspect to raised customer expectations is clients, we find, have less tolerance for how long it takes for us to put a product online. So there is a lead time from when we actually receive something, as in inventory on hand, until it's actually inventory sellable online. So we're trying to work internally to reduce that lead time, because obviously the longer you have it exposed online, the sooner you're going to turn that inventory. And the last thing I would mention is that clients have higher expectations when it comes to the order fulfillment lifecycle. So we try to work with different carriers, trying to distribute that volume across multiple carriers, picking the orders sooner. And even for the BOPUS experience, buy online, pick up in store, we're working to expose a store's inventory position online so that customers are very clear about, just because they select they want to pick up the thing in store A, it's possible that the thing is coming from store B and it's going to ship internally from B to A. So trying to make those communications very clear so that they don't show up in store thinking that it should have been ready.
Interesting. Everything you said kind of is leading to reducing that friction, right, for the whole journey for the shopper. So they don't have to think as much. They can just click that buy button and it'll just somehow arrive to them. But there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Wow.
We have a similar sort of situation with the last couple of points actually there that you raised, Tovi. That we've been working very hard getting products online faster, and that's really involved sort of creating a lot of different workflows with getting stuff from the warehouse, getting it into the studio, getting it photographed, working with a product team. And getting the turnaround of products online a lot faster than we have before. And then, of course, we have similar circumstances with the customer expectations from when they go on the website and they order something to when they actually receive it. So we've also been working a lot in those areas as well. I mean, that's a little bit outside of what I do in the studio, but I certainly know I'm in close contact with the warehouse. So I know logistically a lot of what they're doing and the creative acrobatics that they do to make sure that we can get orders out in really good time.
Nice. We do have a question from Janice Matheson. How long is the lead time normally, and which processes are you mostly waiting for?
Who's that for?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was for you, Tovi, because it came in right after you spoke. So, but if you want to pitch in.
So I guess it's probably referring to the having products ready and then getting them online, and probably less so the shipping element of it, or this.
I would say when the business is under load, like when that particular part of the product life cycle, if you will, when that's under load, specifically at the beginning or just in advance of the start of a season. Harry Rosen has 2 seasons, there's fall and spring. So just at that point, when the process itself is most stressed, it can take up to 5 days for a product to go from being received to actually being shoppable online. The specific parts, it's hard to say like where the exact bottleneck is. I don't think there's from my perspective, from everything I know of that process, there's no single panacea that we're going to find. It's just a function of essentially having the process being more collaborative and shortening the steps between each, or just removing steps outright. So for example, one area of opportunity that I see is the communication between the buying team, the merchandising team, like the merchants themselves within Harry Rosen, being able to communicate more efficiently with the photo studio about which products may be more special than others. So essentially creating like a 2-track system where it's like, okay, the things that we may have fewer units on hand, but that really are showcase pieces, we should kind of like fast track those ones, whereas other ones may be treated differently. Not to say there's only like 2 tracks, there could be multiple, but therein lies some of the nuance that we just need to get better at.
And again, it's similar for us actually when we sort of look at various products. We have to sort of assess, how many we have in stock, how much those products actually cost. And in the studio here, we really have to assess how much resources that we put into creating visuals for those various products. So for example, skateboards, we have some skateboards. I've been photographing some loaded skateboards today. The retail price on those is really at the high end. So of course we can invest some time in those, even though we maybe have less stock of those, but they're definitely those showcase pieces in the same way that Tovi just mentioned. But then we also do, I wouldn't necessarily say lower end products, but products that are maybe more suited to people who are just getting into skateboarding. They don't want to invest so much. So we have, for example, Core or Tony Hawk skateboards. Retail wise, they're not such a big an investment. We have a lot of those in stock quite often. But they tend to sell themselves, so we don't tend to put a lot of effort into actually doing extra visuals in the studio for those, because we actually don't need to. So we're constantly doing this sort of assessment of different products to figure out how much resources we need to put into it to push them, but also marketing wise, but also get them online.
I think that's an excellent point, Greg. Being wise with your where you invest your time. We do the same thing, which is, some products really need to have a lot of care, a lot of extra photos, extra copywriting, and some don't. So kind of figuring out like where each product lies within that spectrum is I think a very good lesson for anybody here.
And Tovi, on that note, like since you have both, seems like at least a lot of understanding and maybe like one leg in the studio side of things, on the content production side, and also on the e-com. I'd be curious to hear from you how sort of your website and the infrastructure there actually supports this kind of variation and the flexibility in like how many images are you displaying, what type of content are you showing, because at least there are some systems that are extremely rigid where there has to be and can only be like 5 images per SKU or so on. So I think it's interesting to hear like how you guys are addressing that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Jacob. Admittedly, the system that, like in totality, the digital ecosystem that Harry Rosen used to be on until August of 2020 was very prohibitive. And internally there was, as one might expect, a fair amount of friction between the digital production team, which is a subset of e-commerce within Harry Rosen, where they were producing beautiful stuff. And I can qualify what I mean when I share that impression. And they felt that that quality was being diminished when it's ultimately shown to the clients. And so figuring this out, making them feel proud that, it's worth spending all that time because it is going to show that much different online. Figuring out the tech to support that was definitely an undertaking. Our current product detail page and the actual CMS and the DAM that we use is much more flexible. So should we want to make a change to, allow for a gallery going from this many images to this many images, we can do that. Obviously, there's page speed considerations and, caching, and there's all sorts of like technical nuts and bolts. That need to be considered as well. But essentially, our digital production team is much happier with the current tech stack we're sitting on.
Okay.
I would call out that some of the things we can do is add as large images as we want, and we leverage essentially the edge to scale those images so that they're contextual, so they're appropriate for the actual browser and device loading them.
Right.
We are very sensitive to page speed. We can load short videos on the product detail page as well. And within those videos, we can do whatever we want. It could be a model kind of like walking in frame and, doing a turn and then walking off. It could be someone from the merchandising team actually giving a bit of their input on what makes this thing special. Really, the options are limitless.
Okay, that's really interesting. Is that something you're also taking into consideration? You mentioned that you're working on these new templates and doing like some A/B testing. Are you also using different types of contents to see how that performs?
Yes, we are. Good question. There are new content types that we have built within the CMS to support this brand new page template. Again, in this test, we were trying to be dramatic, where the one page would be different in kind to the other one. It was not meant to be just an iterative change. But on this new page template, yes, there are new content types that essentially are meant to elevate the product more, like make it seem more beautiful, bring you closer to it. Use photos to actually highlight things like sheen and soft, touch of hand, so to speak. But also be able to do interesting things like have a detail shot beside some copy, and that copy supports what you see in that detail shot. So by contrast, if you just put like 20 images in a gallery and it's positioned almost in isolation on the product detail page, the client doesn't necessarily know what they're looking at. So that was one interesting point. And also just staying away from text, just having the page not look like paragraph after paragraph or bullet point after bullet point, using infographics, using tables, anything, like all sorts of additional rich media to try to make that product come to life, and to try to find new ways to have the client stop on the page instead of them just doing like the doom scroll, right?
Right. I guess very much on par with the topic of today, right? Like the visual strategy and really focus on visual shopping, because that's how people do it today. Interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that pretty much talks about, what we were talking about regarding like visual images and how we're using them to enhance the customer experience. Overall, like out of everything we just discussed now, how have you guys kind of been preparing your visual strategy for the customer experience in time for the holiday season? Because, that's around the corner. So, yeah.
Actually, we're doing a lot of different things, but there's two main areas that we're actually working on. And some of this is a sort of a work in progress for us. Part of something that's maybe not exclusively unique at Skatepro is that as a company, we've actually grown very rapidly in the last few years. So we've had to sort of really implement a lot of different workflows and ways of doing things. One of the things we're doing at the moment to really help us prepare a lot more for the upcoming seasons is actually we've started to produce a lot more stock images. A few years ago, Skatepro was not the size it was now. So the way that we worked back then sort of worked then, but now, of course, we need to be a lot more prepared with things. So what happens now is when a product actually hits the studio, I'll shoot it for the web. I'll then also shoot some layups. So we create some stock images for those items. We might even shoot some video if we need to. And then the idea is, of course, that item or that range of items will go back to the warehouse, and hopefully we won't need to see it again, possibly until the following year when there's maybe some design update or some tweak that the supplier will do or the manufacturer will do with that image. So one of the big things we're doing is building this sort of stock library so that a marketing team can actually just go in and find the products that they need and put together newsletters and social media posts and all that kind of stuff. That's something that we haven't really done previously. So that's sort of quite new for us. And of course, yeah, the Pixelz image library is the main tool that we're using for that. We started using that a few months ago, and it's actually been really useful for us. And there's a couple of things that's really helped us sort of develop the stock library. One is sort of really developing a really strong and simple house style. So we can have some shorthand between us and the marketing team about how we produce those visuals, so we don't have to discuss things too much. And as I mentioned, the other thing is the Pixelz image library
Nice.
as well. Another area as well is overall with our campaigns, just trying to be more prepared in advance. When Skatepro was a lot smaller, we would actually, and this was before my time, but I knew we would actually sort of prepare campaigns. So for example, the Christmas campaign, we would prepare that scarily close to Christmas. So as lead photographer now, wanting to sort of create a lot of different workflows so we can be more prepared, I'm really pushing at the moment, and it is a work in progress, but we're starting to do it, that we start getting prepared months in advance instead of weeks or days. And we are starting to do that, but of course it takes time to do that. But our biggest tool at the moment is getting that workflow with the stock images. That's proving really, really effective. So the next stage is, of course, making sure we're prepared in good time instead of actually sort of putting campaigns together, a little bit too close to say Black Friday or Christmas, let's say.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have a question from Ryan from Toronto, who asked, what type of analytic tools are you implementing or suggesting to measure engagement and define the ROI for these type of activities that you guys are talking about?
Which
well, I
activity?
know we use a lot of Google's tools to analyze. We are actually also about to update some of our back-end systems as well, so we can analyze even more. We can start split testing and doing a lot of stuff. Again, because Skatepro in the last couple of years has expanded in the way that it has, we've not entirely found the need for some of these tools. We've managed to sort of do things a little bit more agile. But now we're really having to invest in sort of these sort of analytical tools a lot more. So I know, I think in the next couple of months, actually, we're changing a lot of our sort of back end systems so we can get more data and more analytics and really sort of see what our customers are doing and how we can sort of improve things for them.
Awesome. Tovi, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I hate to be the guy that answers a question with a question, but I guess it's just so contextual. I mean, just to share, we use our legacy analytics system was Google Analytics. We do have a more enterprise grade solution that we've been using for the last 3 years, almost in parallel. Because some business users are just more comfortable with GA, but really, if you're looking for really rich, really fine-grained questions or answers, we have this other tool from Acoustic. Acoustic used to be IBM. It was a spun-off unit. So it's essentially IBM's former Watson Analytics. And within there, you can do all kinds of neat things like set up, like you can essentially tag any element on the site that you want and create custom funnels. I know it sounds a lot like GA, but what you can do with it is much richer than GA. And the other nice thing that we often use is session playbacks. So you can say, okay, I want to bring up all sessions in the last 7 days with these attributes of the session. And then just watch what people do. So it's essentially, it's not only seeing how effective things are, but you oftentimes observe things that you didn't go looking for. So it tends to be a rich treasure trove of insights for us.
Definitely. And I think this is a really great segue into the next topic we want to kind of go into, which is essentially visual technologies, right? And what kind of technologies we're going into and using to actually optimize our sites. And again, Pixelz scales post-production and optimizes photo studio workflows, while Syte uses visual AI to create seamless product discovery experiences, right? The list goes on and on. There are many different types of visual technologies, such as augmented reality, artificial intelligence, live streaming, and so much more. So right, with the holidays right around the corner, what kind of technology are you guys counting on to set your experience for shoppers apart from the others?
I'm going to leave a little bit of these answers to Tovi, partly because of the studio that we run here is sort of I'm the guy with the camera in the studio, so some of these sort of tools and things that we're investing in, I know they're sort of outside the studio, and I know we are investing in some of these things as well. We're investing heavily in sort of technology in the warehouse, and as I said, sort of analytical platforms, but also customer care platforms as well. But these are a little bit sort of outside of my speciality, let's just say, as the guy with the camera in the studio. So I think probably Tovi has a lot more insights in what they're doing with Harry Rosen to share with the audience.
I hope I don't disappoint.
Yeah.
So from the Harry Rosen perspective, there's really 4 things that come to mind. I mean, as Greg said, investing in the tooling that our customer care team has. Specifically, we do have an AI a chatbot vendor that we're trying to mature so that it can offload more volume from customer care, especially because it's not terribly difficult to map, where you're getting the most queries and which of those chatbot can handle, and then just working down that list. One of the other aspects, this one is more towards the digital production side of the house. We have a really neat planning tool within the CMS. So we can essentially stage not just the homepage, but any page on our domain. We can stage that several weeks in advance. It's actually even further than that. We're just not in the habit of doing it that far out, but specifically for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or for Boxing Week, we can essentially do this staging to say, okay, on the homepage, change this asset and that asset at 10 a.m. and then at 12 p.m., etc. If you want to have, say, gate crashers. And we can also share out those staging links within the marketing team so that there's actual approvals for what the site will look like to ensure that all the assets are crisp, all the discounting is correct, all the communications are, as they should be. So that's become a very important tool within our toolkit in terms of keeping, operations smooth during that period, trying to offload that work so people don't have to stay up at midnight to ensure that the site flips as it should. And the other aspect is trying to make our product catalog, which is very broad and deep, more discoverable. So this is actually where Syte is a really good vendor partner within the Harry Rosen digital ecosystem. Some of the things, I've already touched on this a bit, but Shop the Look has become very important. There's a lot of good product discovery done through that feature. This is where the brand can really project its point of view on what's important for a man to wear for this particular context. From Shop the Look, we have Shop Similar, which is what we leverage Syte for. We also use microsites. So this is our internal term. I'm not sure how broadly it's used, but essentially we can curate a product result page. So it's a searchable, indexable URL but it is temporary. It's not stable through time. So let's say, athleisure started off as a microsite, but then it became a more stable category. Smart sneakers might be another example, or anything more topical. We tend to rely on those quite a bit to essentially curate that product catalog down to a very specific collection. And the last tactic I would mention is discounting. We used to have, in my opinion, rather complicated discounts during this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Boxing Week period. And we found experientially that the simpler the discount is for a client to understand, the more they actually transact against it. So even though we do have a very rich discounting engine, specifically for those time periods, we try to keep things simple. That's what we're up to.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, that was a great and very in-depth answer.
Actually, I just want to throw in actually, because of course you mentioned Black Friday there. Last year for Black Friday, we actually decided not to do any discounts at all across the site. And what we actually did was we decided to donate quite a sizable part of our profits from Black Friday to actually to a charity that builds skate parks around the world in underprivileged places. And that actually was surprisingly effective. I mean, we put it out there that that's what we were doing. We definitely had a lot of customers coming in and wondering where the discounts were. So we're not 100% sure whether we're going to repeat that this year. It's in discussion at the moment, but yeah, it was actually really successful for us to be able to do that. And we offered, no significant discounts on anything on last Black Friday. So that was a nice experiment, let's say. So.
That's an interesting approach, Greg, and going a little bit in the other direction, right? But I think that's what's so interesting about this field is that there are so many different tactics that you can apply, and there's not like a real answer. It really depends on your brand and your customer base, and also just really testing things out, right? I think it spoke very well to Pedro, who had a question on this. I don't know if you guys noticed that one, but he asked if there were any learnings from last year that is going to impact this year's planning. So Greg, you checked off that box, and I don't know, Tovi, if you have anything to add to that question, if there's any learnings from last year, do's and don'ts.
The biggest do that I would recommend is stress test your site. Ensure that there are no alerts going off, no executives waking up. Everybody can remain cool and that you've done your homework. But like when the sales start, when you start seeing the traffic numbers spiking, and then that's the new plateau for the next little while, right, have confidence that your site is going to perform. I don't necessarily mean page speed is sub 2 seconds, but that the entire tech stack has been stressed and it will actually not break down.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the next, question that we wanted to, in the same kind of realm of visual technologies was, at the end of the day, why do you think certain technologies are, the talk of the town, or why are people kind of focusing on either live streaming or artificial intelligence or whatever it may be in the past, I would say, couple of years?
But there's actually a really big trend at the moment in photography in general. I think for AI, a lot of if you work as a freelance photographer or some of the software that you use in that realm, the big thing that they all talk about is AI, like having images sort of automatically edited, or so that seems to be quite a huge thing at the moment. I know Adobe also, I think in their next release, are introducing some more AI stuff into their products as well. So, I mean, AI really does seem to be the thing when it comes to producing images now. I know Pixelz uses some versions of AI, right, for background removal and things like that. And of course, we find that enormously effective.
Yeah.
But I guess that's definitely the trend, and I'm sure it's going to sort of keep going. And as the tools get better and make workflows sort of go faster and better, then I'm sure they'll be adopted more and more. In situations like where we are at Skatepro, we want to make sure we use tools that make our workflow better, and we need to test those a little bit. So at some point, using AI more heavily is going to make sense for us. So we'll actually probably start using it a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, I guess it also speaks to what you guys both mentioned in the beginning, with speed, like time to market, right? And just speed in general, how important that is, and being able to leverage AI is definitely a huge enabler in doing just that. And you are right, Craig. We have multiple different versions of AI that we use for multiple purposes. Both, of course, it like, as we know with AI, is that it's extremely consistent. It doesn't make many decisions itself, so you get that consistency right, and of course the speed, you can't really beat that. Kind of like what you mentioned, Tovi, as well, like having an infrastructure that can handle that. Same thing goes with AI, right? Like you essentially only need to scale your servers, and then you can take in thousands of images in a few minutes, essentially. So it does have a ton of opportunity, and the ceiling is not really in sight, at least for now.
Yeah, AI and AR definitely present some really fascinating tooling that's out in the market, and what comes next, it always blows your mind a little bit. From Harry Rosen's perspective, I would say we tend to be, we move slowly and carefully when we pick our vendors that we work with. We try to look for vendors that we can think of more as partners, in the sense that they're almost co-invested in our success. We're not just, especially when it's a client-facing gap within our digital ecosystem, we're never looking just to slap on another feature on the site. We want to ensure that the tool itself is a good citizen within our ecosystem. Not all vendors can satisfy that requirement of ours, and that it should not feel like it's just some adjunct slapped onto your website. It should feel like it's still Harry Rosen, which means something when you actually shop with us. It means something to us. That being said, there are 3 areas that we are curious about. First is, as I mentioned, with customer care, having chatbots. We do have a vendor for that. We do use Syte, which leverages AI. And also, I'd say for size and fit, this tends to be a problem for our context, where a customer, if they can't actually try on the garment pre-purchase, we are working to make that particular friction point minimized. And to do that, yes, you need tons and tons of data, but you also need a little bit of intelligence behind it. So for example, if a customer purchases a 32 by 32 pair of jeans in a particular brand with a particular fit, like something very specific, if they returned it and they needed to do an exchange for something just off from that, say a 34, 32, we want to be able to know about that, so that for their next purchase, we're refining our understanding of what that customer needs, like what truly should be in their closet, whether it's physical or digital. These things, we definitely keep looking on the market. I hope I don't get a whole bunch of cold sales calls from this, but in a sense, I kind of do too.
Well, actually, like to tag on to what you're saying, and also to what Ryan was saying in the chat when he asked about the analytics tools that you guys are using to track the success of what you're testing out on your site. I know that, at least from Syte, because I work here, so like I know what we're doing regarding analytics, but we're very transparent, right, with what the tool is bringing to your site, right? What solutions are bringing what results. So the solutions or the AI tech or whatever it is that you add onto your site can also be a form of analytics, depending on how transparent the company is, right? With the results that you're getting from the technology. But that's something that, again, that at least Syte does with its visual AI, to show you a kind of like a tool or a dashboard of what results you're getting on your site. Maybe Tovi, if you want to talk about that a bit.
Thank you for that, Shira. That's an excellent point that I'd like to dovetail onto, which is when we approach the market looking for a vendor, say for something AI related, whatever it may be, when we're on the market, We have a specific problem in mind that we're trying to solve, which I think gives that, just by staying true to that, it keeps the discipline in place where we're not just chasing trends. Not to suggest that, I'm not saying anything about the market, but that's the approach we take. And with Syte as an example, I mean, Shiri opened that up. We do have analytics, very rich analytics that they provide us that we can actually cross-reference with our own, so we know that they're actually true. And once that validation is done, there's no need to cross-reference anymore. We can just bring up the Tableau data sets that we get from Syte and see exactly what's working, what's not, and watch that business case, watch that ROI prove itself out, which is also very important for us. We're not just looking for tools' sake.
Right. All right. So this kind of brings us into the next topic that we wanted to discuss, which essentially is talking about practical strategies for making the shift to build that strong infrastructure. So, again, whenever speaking about innovative products, the main question a lot of retailers ask is, how can I go about implementing this? Will it be a hassle? And, who better to answer this than the retailers themselves to understand, and discuss the back end work and how you can build a better infrastructure to support these types of solutions. So it would be great to hear from you both, what needs to be going on in the back end in order to enable impactful visual experiences on the front end of an e-commerce site.
Well, for us at Skatepro, actually, it's very much about workflows. We do, of course, as I mentioned, sort of implement some technologies. One that actually I was going to mention in the last section was also we use something called TextBot. So we automatically generate text for certain products that helps our product team write text faster. But that helps them with their overall workflow, so we can get products online quicker. But from the studio perspective, there's actually a lot of logistics at play in this area, and it's that workflow and logistical side that we're really investing in at the moment. So, for example, I've worked really hard to create a really great relationship with the warehouse, for example. I mean, I can't do my job if the products don't get delivered from the warehouse on time. And if they don't get delivered on time, of course, I can't shoot the pictures we need so we can get them up quickly. So one of the things that we've done is we've communicated a lot and created a good relationship so we can create a workflow where there's just this constant flow of products coming into the studio every day. So I can turn up in the morning, grab the trolleys that are available, get them in the studio, and basically start getting to work as well. I've also created some workflows to do with our product team as well. So they can really sort of get an idea of the products that are coming through the studio. And of course, if I need to ask any questions or need to go deeper with those products in some way, they're always available for me now. So I can actually sort of have those question answers to make sure I sort of hit, some of the visuals that we need with some of those products. Because a lot of the products we sell are quite technical. So we certainly have to sort of show some things in a very certain way or show off those sort of technical aspects. So having that sort of good workflow and relationship with a product team is hugely important. And the same goes with the teams that produce our newsletters and also our social media as well. Making sure that, I have a good sort of working relationship with them and a constant dialogue. So they also know what's coming in the studio, what's being shot, for example, for stock images, which I mentioned earlier. So they then can build campaigns based around some of the products that are actually hitting the studio. Of course, we also have planned campaigns as well, but basing sort of some campaigns a little bit on the fly according to the products that are actually coming through the studio means that we can really sort of, be agile in sharing sort of campaigns that are sort of those hot off the press products as soon as they come into stock. And of course, we do have planned campaigns as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're working a lot to sort of be more prepared with that. But for us, it really is all about workflows and relationships and communication. And then any technologies that we can sort of implement to help supplement that is what we're really interested in. But at the moment, yeah, it is very much workflows. That's the thing that we're really spending a lot of time at the moment, at least, you know, from the studio perspective.
And Greg, I'm very aware of the time here, and we're coming to an end here, but at least we want to check off the question that we got from Hannah here. And I guess speaking of workflows, like Hannah's asking, what are some of the examples of AI tools the photo studio is using? And without stealing your answer or answering on your behalf, like you touched on a little bit before, at least I can tell you that some of the things that we're working on together is like anything AI related, like when it comes to the post-production side, right? In removing backgrounds, adding shadows, doing retouching, like the color changing, all those type of things that you can do to, you know, optimize the workflow in the studio and get your products to market faster and maybe even cheaper if you only need 1 sample instead of 9 samples, etc. So I didn't want to take it for you, but just elaborating a little bit on your point earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know a lot more about the back end technologies that you're using at Pixelz, where we just take advantage of them. So I mean, right. We've definitely seen a huge change, particularly in the last sort of year, where we've really started working together. You know, we've gone from, you know, I mean, product images we've always had a pretty okay workflow with. That's definitely got faster. But on the creative side, having a faster workflow with products has allowed us to do more on the creative side. And, you know, working with Pixelz has really helped us do that. I mean, we can literally, with some of the creative stuff now, once we've shot it, we can send it to Pixelz. You know, you use the technologies that you use to get those images ready for us. And we can pretty much get them out there and get them online straight away. We literally don't do much post-production on images anymore. And I know anyone who's out there who works with images on a daily basis knows that that is heavy work. You know, if you're having to sit and do all that work yourself in-house, that's a lot of people hours to be producing images. So being able to utilize Pixelz technologies in doing that has been a huge help for us.
Right. Well, you're nodding, Tovi. I don't know. Final comment here before we probably need to wrap up. I mean, we could go on for a very long time, but any final remarks, Tovi?
Well, I was nodding because I know that's also a pain point within the photo studio team, is just that perhaps not very noticeable and perhaps thankless task of, you know, making the images perfect, essentially making them their best. I would only compliment Greg's answer by speaking a little bit also towards the operational side, less to the tech side, to say that stakeholdering is very important. So aligning with the business on what their needs are, as opposed to just dropping in new instrumentation and saying, hey, here's the new way to do things. Essentially bringing people along, finding out what their problem is, involving them in the procurement and the enablement process, so that ultimately they feel like whatever the digital side or whatever decisions are being made about instrumentation or workflows is being done with their inputs, and they're essentially you know, along for the ride. That I found to be a very important attribute of changes like this. And also working across silos, ensuring that all teams are aware of what the others need and what changes are coming up. That's also an important aspect.
Yeah, communication, definitely. All right, I think we're wrapping it up. Is this our cue, everyone?
I think we have to, right?
Yes, it is. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for attending All Eyes on You webinar with Syte, Pixelz, Rosen, and Skatepro. This was really a really interactive session. We're really grateful for all the questions and the interactiveness. And if anyone has any further questions or would like to reach out to any of us, you guys can, I think, email, if I'm not mistaken, the Pixelz team that sent out the invitation, and we can go forward from there. Does anyone have any final comments or farewell? here on the panel.
It's been awesome. It's been really great to be online with you guys. So I appreciate being here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Same here.
Thank you, Tovi and Greg, for your great insight.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye,
All
everyone.
right. Have a good one. Cheers.